Got an awesome guest today, Mr. Russell Beebe. He wants to help you eat better. He wants to help you think better and awaken spiritually. You can't beat that, right? Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Freddy O Show, a podcast devoted to you, the listener, your purpose, your mindset, and your marketing efforts, designed to help you go to that next level. Now here's your host, Freddy O.
Oh my gosh, you are awesome, and I thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to episode number two of the Freddy O Show. This is Freddy Owen, and now before I get to our special guest rock star today, I wanted to extend the invite to a brand new Facebook group I just started called the Funnel Mastery Alliance that was created to focus on funnel creation strategies, marketing ideas, lead generation, plus so much more. That is the Funnel Mastery Alliance. And how do you join? All you have to do is go to winwithfred.com/FMA. That is winwithfred.com/FMA. This is the Funnel Mastery Alliance, and you answer a few simple questions, and then myself or my assistant will get you on the inside. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you in the Facebook group. Also, you can access all podcast show transcripts at winwithfred.com, so make sure you do that. It's easy peasy, my friends. So, question. Do you want to eat better? I do. How about think better? I think you can always think better. Maybe even give your spirituality a wake-up call and giddy up. All three of those things are what our next guest thrives on. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Russell Beebe. Welcome to the Freddy O Show, Russell, and I'm super pumped to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Freddy.
So we're going to get started right off the rip and just ask you, Russell, who is Russell Beebe and what makes you tick?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am formerly a musician, a French horn player, turned into a therapist, counselor, and a clinical director, and then reformed to what I like to call a life and wellness coach. And I do that work online, basically. So I help people with their wellness. I help them with their life purpose. It's a little bit like counseling, but it's a little bit different than doing clinical work. So that's basically what I do. I'm a life and wellness coach.
Okay, so what actually made you dive into that particular niche? Was it something that you just because of your past, or is it something deep or something more personal for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and I can kind of I'll try to give you sort of the brief version of this. So I was a musician and I was doing that thing. And then over my life, I would say about 20 years ago, I started to recognize that I had some pretty significant addiction problems with alcohol and drugs, and I got into AA, and I was sober for a bunch of years, eventually relapsed, kind of went on sort of about a year and a half of what I would consider to be a pretty horrific bender, and I ended up back in substance abuse treatment, got sober again, started cultivating health and wellness in my life, and then decided I really liked helping people. That began for me in the 12 steps. And as soon as I started doing that, I realized, maybe I could be a therapist, because I found that I was like counseling. I was sponsoring them, but I was also counseling them. So I went back to school and got a graduate degree in mental health counseling. And that was probably about 10 years ago. And then I went through sort of a stream of different types of jobs in the mental health and addictions field, doing outreach, doing outpatient therapy. And then eventually I landed as the clinical director of a substance abuse treatment center up in New Hampshire, which I worked in for about 3.5 years until the end of February. And so that's kind of like where I came from in terms of helping people and doing health and wellness work, was really out of my own recovery in the 12 steps, and my own my need to get healthy in my life so that I could kind of live a good life. Because when I don't do that, drugs and alcohol happen and really bad things happen.
Oh, 100% agree. And like, for instance, right now with the pandemic, it has affected a lot of people. It's really showing a lot of people their weaknesses. Maybe they even realize they had. And if you look at the liquor stores, they're the most packed places right now. You know, people are falling back into previous addictions. It's really, really frustrating. So it's good that you're doing this for people. It's helping people out. So when was the moment that turned the idea machine on that made you want to take your passion online and bring it to the masses?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm so glad you asked that, because it literally gets me pumped up to think about. And I like literally yesterday, I talked about this live in my Facebook group. So, and I know exactly when this happened. It was probably early September 2017. I had been working as the clinical director of this substance abuse treatment center up in New Hampshire. And there I was once again in my life, very unhappy in a job. And I was in a sort of a corporate structure. I was stressed. I'm working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. I'm getting calls on the weekends. You know, I'm frustrated with staff. Great program, you know what I mean? Doing a lot of good stuff, good help with people. But once again, I was miserable in a job. And I remember doing what I do as somebody that's in recovery is you sort of get quiet and kind of ponder what's going on with yourself. And I was like, I knew, because I had several different jobs, that it wasn't the jobs that were to blame. It wasn't the employer that was to blame. I started to realize that it was jobs in general, like the thing that people do where they go to work for 40 hours a week, they get 2 weeks of vacation, and they live till they're 75 and hope that they have enough retirement so that they can retire and live off the money that they make. I realized in that moment back in 2017 that I had an issue with that. And I also realized that I really wanted more freedom in my life. And this interesting thing happened. I suddenly got turned on to a book that talked about, passive income. It talked about being an entrepreneur and, outsourcing some of the things that you do and being a business owner. And I got very much interested. And then how the internet could make that possible, that the internet could make it possible. If I had a business that was online, I could run that business from anywhere. So like my parents have a place down in Rhode Island, I could be in Rhode Island, or I could be on a vacation. And then I would have the freedom to run the business the way that I wanted to do. So I started to realize the power of the internet in order to do that. And I set out rather obsessively to find sort of my niche for that, because I was clear that that's what I wanted to do. And the reason and the why and the reason I wanted to do that is I wanted to get away from the 9-to-5 grind of a job, do my own thing, be able to work wherever I, anywhere in the world. And then to be able to scale that to a point where I could make a living doing that. And that's kind of like, that was the epiphany that I had. And it was a long journey to get where I am now, where I am doing that. I'm not working a job and I'm making a living online.
That's awesome, man. Let me ask a question. Did you ever have a point in time where you strayed away from your passion, your focus, and got hit between the eyes with the old shiny object syndrome? Because a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. And did you ever struggle with that? Because it's very easy to do in this space.
I did shiny object like you wouldn't believe, actually. And I by the way, when I say that, a lot of people say, there is some negative connotation to that. But I have to tell you that every shiny object I followed, I learned a ton from. And I learned about what I didn't want to do. And I also learned about the game of you know what I mean? So like I always tell people when I coach them, like nothing is ever lost. Okay. And I spent a lot of money going down different shiny objects, believe me. And my wife was starting to get very unhappy with that. I started out with a random online money-making thing, but I did quickly kind of turn into like, I wanted to take my recovery experience and my experience as a counselor and utilize that. So like the course idea and the ebook idea was there. But I went down some rabbit holes with affiliate marketing, which is awesome stuff, by the way. Like, I have no problem with that. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So I went these different ways, and some, and bought a lot of different courses, and set out on a trajectory going one way, and then didn't turn out very good, and then I do a 180-degree turn. So yeah, I mean, I did the shiny object thing like crazy.
But it's good though that you went through that.
Yes, it was a good thing. Now that I'm actually successful, I look back at it and I go, everything that I did was for a reason, and I learned a ton from it, and I met a lot of good people. I met you through that process. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I met Bob Beckett through that process. My current coach that I have, Mark Crandall, I mean, like I met him through that process. So it's
because you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it either A, I lost a lot of money, okay, or B, I learned from my mistakes and the shiny object syndrome, and I'm going to get better and not do those mistakes again. Because here's the thing, a lot of people do the same mistakes over and over again. They just don't learn from their previous mistakes, and that's why they fail. I like to put it like this. If you're driving on the road and you see a brand new building, my wife loves like new restaurants. She's like, oh, look, there's a new Starbucks getting built here. That's fantastic. So, but if you're driving on the road, you see a brand new business. It's got a nice shiny new sign, and you can tell that they're like pumped. They're ready to the grand opening, and boom, they're up and ready to go. So then you drive down the same road 5 years from now, the sign's dilapidated. It's like they gave up on their idea. They gave up because either A, business was not as easy as it was supposed to be, B, they lost their passion, but usually it's because they don't know how to reignite that fire every day. Like, okay, I'm going out there to do what I am, my purpose, what I am blessed to do. And a lot of people cannot keep that mentality. They just give up, and it's frustrating.
Real quick, the problem that I had, or the problem that I see with shiny object syndrome is that a lot of the programs people join, part of the marketing sends a message that this is going to be easy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not easy starting your own business. All the people that are like working 4 hours a week, they grinded like nuts.
Absolutely.
To get there. So you can get to that point. I'm not there yet. I'm still working my butt off 7 days a week to grow my business. And I love it. Like, I would do it all day if I could, you know what I mean? But eventually I want to get to a point where some of that stuff is outsourced and I can, get some freedom. But the problem is people expect it to be easy, and it's a lot harder than people think.
Oh, yeah.
But if you stick with it, the miracle will happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just here to say that.
And the sad thing is that some people don't give themselves enough time. They could be right there, right at that point to where they're about to like cross the momentum, that tipping point, and they give up. And something I've come to realize after coaching a lot of people is that I used to take it very personal if they did not succeed. But if they don't want it bad enough, there's nothing you can do, no matter what. Motivate them, encourage them. There's nothing that you can do to make them want something bad enough. Usually they don't have that tenacity that is needed to run their own business. And it's just frustrating, but I guess it's easy for them to just go to a 40-hour work week and be told what to do by somebody else and actually do it for themselves. And I truly believe that there are people out there that give up way too easy, and if they just stuck with it, they'd be in great shape. They just got to stick with it. Now, what kind of advice would you give to somebody brand spanking new about to dive into the online world and getting ready to start their own online business, or actually regular business? What advice would you give them? Like you're starting from scratch.
If I was to go back and do it all over again, the best advice that I would do is to either find a mentor or a coach.
Oh, yeah.
That can do two things. One, help you identify exactly what you want to do. You know what I mean? Rather than going like all these different directions, like to really dig in I didn't get that particular coaching, until it was about like the middle of March, actually, where I was forced by a coach to like identify what's my why am I doing this? How do I want to help? What's my niche going to be? And then to develop a plan to go and do that.
Oh, yeah.
So for that to have a process where a person can get really clear on what it is that they want to do, and then go into it and with the understanding that it's going to be a lot of hard work. It's not this easy, plug and play thing that you see everybody promising out there. I mean, I still get the emails, learn how to make $1,000 a day. Ugh. I'm just like, that disgusts me. Like, are you kidding me? Like, can't tell you how many times I tried that BS. You know what I mean?
Agree.
So that's kind of like to sort of realize that, and then to just do that long enough to stay the course long enough for the miracle to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in a place, I spent 2 years figuring this out. I'm in a place where I have my own business. It's paying the bills. I'm working from home, and I love the work that I do. But that took me 2.5 years to get there.
And like you said, you coach people. So have you ever had an issue to where, like, when I coach people, there's been times where I've had to have like a tough love kind of talk, like, hey, listen, I told you to go ahead and do this last week. And then you asked me, what do I do? And you didn't do the first thing. Have you ever had that tough love kind of talk? Because sometimes, people need to be like woken up and say, hey, listen, you paid for this. Why aren't you doing the work? Put in the work.
To be honest with you, I just started being profitable in my business. I have 6 in my wellness coaching program.
Okay.
And then 1 that I'm doing that I'm about to do some business coaching with. She wants to learn how I did what I did. So I'm going to show her how I became a coach and a consultant. I have a package that costs a certain amount of money. And I have found that when people commit to this financially and emotionally, and they have to commit on the front end most of the time to 2 months with me, I have found those people that commit like that financially and emotionally, they're doing the work. So my experience as a therapist, doing like people come in for a week for like an hour session and then go home, they come back the next week and they don't do anything I asked them to do. That hasn't been so much my experience with coaching just yet. But I'll tell you what that conversation, so I just started, and I'm sure that's going to happen. I'll tell you what that conversation is going to look like. It's going to look like, hey, you paid me X amount of dollars, and yet you're not doing anything that I'm asking you to do. Can we talk about why that's going on? And then as a therapist, I would dig in, like, why is this happening with you? Try to get that person to pull their head out of their butt and get them moving forward. That's what a coach does. It's like on a football field, right?
Oh, yeah. And then people, it's like they care more about what other people think than about themselves. And that is just really, it's sad. It's frustrating. It's sad. I love the football coach reference, by the way. I always do football coach references. And personally, I like to have a real targeted list. Everybody says that you have to have a huge list, a huge email list. I just want to have a targeted tribe of people that are go-getters, that want to make a difference in their life. And honestly, then they give me a great feedback that they learned something and they're successful. That's huge to me. So here's a question. If you were like Forrest Gump, hopefully you've seen Forrest Gump. Have you seen Forrest Gump?
Yeah, been a while, but yes.
Okay, good. So what would you want to build a tribe. And just FYI, everybody, Russell has a free Facebook group. We're going to go ahead and put the link in the show notes, so make sure you check that out. You can join that, and that's awesome. And then you're going to get something else for free. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show. But what would you, Russell, want them to follow you for? Like Forrest Gump, when he was running, because he loved running. But they believed in his vision, his mission.
I think the one thing that a person would follow. So I would say, people, let's not talk about like acute mental health issues, okay, or acute addiction issues. There's a lot of people in the world that are like me and you, and they have this section of their life, like 20 to 30% of their life, where they are somewhat miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe it's having trouble getting out of bed in the morning. Maybe it's eating bad. It's wanting to lose an extra 40 pounds. Maybe, they get they have a little more anxiety than they would like to have. There's some kind of wellness or health issue that they're having. The people that I work with mostly have something like that going on, and they desperately need a program that can show them how to cultivate a daily wellness routine where they sort of they achieve the goal of that 20 or 30% in their life to kind of level up in their wellness.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what people would follow me for.
And I think that the people that are going to actually follow you, like Forrest Gump, are ones that can really admit that they have an issue. A lot of people don't do that. Like on Facebook, you see everybody's highlights. You don't see all the lowlights that sometimes people have. But everybody has something. You've never arrived. If you think you've arrived, I think you need to do a gut check, because no matter what, you're continually climbing, getting better every day without fail, no exceptions. And honestly, it's brave to do that. It's brave to say, okay, listen, I have an issue and I need to make it better. So I'm going to go ahead and get Russell's coaching to make my situation better. That would be huge for somebody, because guess what? One little thing can change your life for the long run. And that's what's so powerful about what you do. So if you're listening to this and you do have an issue, you want to get better with your health, you want to get better with your regimen, you want to get better with your mindset, Russell has a coaching program, and we're going to show you how to get a hold of Russell at the end of the show, or you can look at the show notes, because guess what? He's somebody that you want to call and take advantage of his services. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about daily rituals. If there was only one daily ritual that you could do, which one would you do? What would you which one would you not sacrifice?
Yeah, hands down, absolutely. And by the way, this is 95% of why I sit here feeling healthy and well in my life for the most part. I'm like a 9.5 on a scale of 10, right? Is the morning routine. Period, end of story. Which basically is prayer, meditation, some reading, visualization, some writing, and there's a couple other things. It's sort of like the Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. If I miss that morning routine, the day is much more difficult for me. And if on the other hand I do it, everything flows really nicely from there. So that's what I would say.
That's fantastic. But what I want you to do, Russell, is I want you to give me one. You're running late. You have no choice but to pick one of those habits or rituals. Which one would you not sacrifice?
For me, it is sitting down with a pen and a paper and writing out my goals and writing out a plan for the day.
Boom.
And it's pretty brief. It's a writing process.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. That's some gravy right there. So your whole morning routine, all the things you described earlier, how long does that usually take you to accomplish every morning?
My whole morning thing is about an hour.
That's not bad.
But I can do it in 20 if I really need to.
Also, Russell, obviously, when you first started out, it took a lot longer when you first started doing the routine than it does like right now.
Yeah, you mean longer than an hour?
Yeah. Like, for instance, I started this app. It's called Elevate, and because I like to stay sharp. And I'm glad I started doing this, but this thing notifies you every morning at a certain time that, hey, listen, let's go through your training, and then it just keeps your mind sharp. And there's been times I've looked at it and I had to force myself to go ahead and like dive into it, because I was getting frustrated because some of the stuff that they were having me do was really frustrating. I just wasn't getting it. And I was like, dang, I feel dumb. But here's the thing. It's not my forte, but it really does help me stay sharp. So exactly. And it goes back to doing it for you.
Yeah, that's right. And the funny thing is I couldn't even force myself to do any of it. The turning point for me was when I was in substance abuse treatment. This was over 10 years ago.
Okay.
they wouldn't let you sleep in. I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. I couldn't get up when the alarm went off. So I was forced to get up when I was in treatment, and it created this habit. And I started to feel the benefits of it. And so then it wasn't difficult to get up in the morning. So it's kind of weird. Like I didn't be like one day I need to start getting up in the morning. I just couldn't do it at all. And so at first it was a struggle to be like, I'd rather be sleeping right now. But as soon as I started doing that day after day, I started feeling the benefits and I was fine. So yes, I mean, it did take, there was a period of discomfort of some, a week, 2 weeks or something like that, where I had to do that new habit for it to become automatic.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. Now, Russell, I like to try different things. Have you ever heard of the cold shower thing in the morning? Where you wake up and you jump into the shower and all you do is take a cold shower and it's miserable. Have you ever heard of that? Yes.
You know what's funny? I'm literally, and I can show you right here, day 62. This is my book that I write on. I'm on day 62 of cold showers. I got turned on to it from somebody that I met actually about a year ago, and this COVID thing went down, and then somebody was like, "Hey, you want to do a cold shower challenge?" I did. It was like a 21-day challenge. Unbelievable. So yes.
Yeah. I've tried it out, and the thing is, I don't know what is cold. What is considered a cold shower? Because if you turn it all the way to cold, it's horrific. It feels terrible, and I fought through it, but it sort of put my body into a crazy shock mentally, and it didn't feel good. I just need to know, what is cold.
I asked that question at the beginning when I started this channel. This guy, by the way, his name's Jesse Harless. He wrote a book called Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers. It's really good. You could listen to it on Audible in an hour. Anyway, he goes over that, but I asked this question when I started the challenge: how cold is cold? And he basically said 68 degrees or less is fine.
Okay.
That's not bad.
No, that's like pool water temperature.
So you can, but I want to tell you my experience though. You can also, you can do a hot shower and rinse off for a couple of minutes cold. But here's what I experienced. At first, I would do it moderately cold, and I got good benefits from that. After about a month of doing that, I had this period where I was really struggling doing them. Like I didn't want to do it, and I felt really uncomfortable doing it. And from that point, I went to as cold as I could get it, like the thing pinned on cold. So now, I would say for the last 20 days or so, I've been doing it like piping cold, to the point where I have to like back out of the shower sometimes, you know what I mean? And there's something about doing that pushed it to another level for me. And part of the reason I started doing that is I started seeing all these pictures of the Wim Hof method of people sitting in baths with ice cubes and things like that. And so it intrigued me. But I just found there's something easier for me about doing the like extreme cold thing and just like taking deep breaths and just being uncomfortable for 5 minutes. And then I get out and I just feel like on the top of the world.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, here's the thing. I'm going to get back to it. But I can tell you right now, it was crazy when I first started doing it. But I also had it down to probably 30 degrees, or well, not 30, but low. It was all the way to the cold end of it, the spectrum, and it was beating me up. I was like breathing like crazy. I had to get my breathing under control. But 68 degrees isn't too bad. Actually, even lower than that isn't too bad. So yeah, I'm definitely going to get back to it and do that, because I know the benefits really are amazing, is what I've been told. So obviously, it's a game changer for you.
My life, I was fairly. I don't have a high degree of anxiety when I started doing this and stress in my life. But I would say from my baseline, which wasn't that bad, I would say 20 or 30% reduction in my overall stress and anxiety. It was like really profound. Well, from like day one, it was unbelievable. So it's very powerful. And apparently it's good for your immune system, which is good these days with the COVID thing going on. He talked about all the science of it in that book and stuff like that. So,
well, I'm definitely going to grab that book. So, yeah. Okay. So we're going to switch gears now to the digital marketing aspect of what we do. In this industry, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. What would you do if you had a button? What would you do to change? What one thing would you change in the industry? Because I think we both know there's a dark side to the industry.
I mean, it's just what I was saying earlier. I think this message that jump onto this thing and you can, make X amount of dollars a day working 30 minutes a day, like that whole thing. That makes me ashamed of being part of the digital world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's understandable. The sad thing is, if it's too good to be true, it's most likely not true. And it's great that a lot of the companies, the networks have really cracked down on some of these guys that were putting out straight garbage offers and taking advantage of people. They were here one day and then the next day they're gone. It's a shame.
One quick other thing I would say is don't underestimate organic. A lot of people are paying for clicks and Facebook ads, and all that's really good. But I've been successful with organic at this point, and I spent a ton of money paying for ads that I didn't need to. I may at some point to scale, but you can grow this deal organic, and social media is really good with it if you're willing to put the effort in. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. You got to, step out of your comfort zone every day. There was a point in time in which I had a hard time doing that. I kept on looking at everybody else and how they were doing things. And it's good to, learn from people, but you have to make it your own. If you don't make it your own and you don't put in the work, you're not going to get anywhere. There's nothing, my father always used to tell me, there's nothing for free. Okay. You're not, some people think it's free, but in the long run, it's going to cost you time and a lot of headaches. So realize you got to put in the work, and eventually it's going to pan out and be successful. And unfortunately, some people don't want to put in the work. So do me a favor. If you're listening to this and you really want something bad enough, you're going to go ahead. You have to put the work in. You're going to get dirty and you're going to have some struggles, some roadblocks, but make sure you fight through them. So, Russell, what are you going to be, what are we going to give away to the audience today? I know we got the Facebook group. What else are we looking at as far as they can get from you to learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a free training where I basically talk about the top 3 things that I have done in my life to be consistent in a health and wellness routine. And how that basically became automatic because of the ways that I did it, and because of the quick benefits that I got from doing a daily routine. And I actually in this training I talk. It's funny because I planned out the training and it kind of went differently than I had expected. I talk a lot about my own depression and trouble getting out of bed in the morning and sort of trouble, being a successful human being and showing up for life and all that thing. And I talk about my struggles getting into recovery and all the things that you need to do in terms of mind, body, spirit with healthy eating and meditating and exercising, mind, body, spirit stuff. So it's basically a free training where I talk about how I got to where I am in my life and the main points that people need to sort of realize in order to get to a point where they can kind of level up their health and wellness, whether that be they're eating poorly or whether that be they're feeling depressed or they have a high degree of anxiety. There's certain things that are common amongst everybody that they can do to get to a point where they have this routine where they, literally transform their lives. I'm seeing it in my coaching clients now because that's how I have structured my coaching program.
Fantastic, brother. Okay, so definitely you guys want to go to winwithfred.com /podcast, and you can get the show notes, get everything that Russell has to offer, join his Facebook group. You want to definitely go ahead and do that because I'm going to tell you something. This guy is a super wealth of knowledge, has tons of knowledge and wisdom, and he's been through it. So if you're struggling with your mindset, your purpose, anything like that, definitely go ahead and go to the podcast notes and hit Russell up and take advantage of what he has to offer today. So now we are going to have a little bit of I'm going to call this what can I call this? This is going to be called the super hyper fast Q&A round, where I'm going to ask you some crazy questions and you give me the answer. They're not going to be anything. They're going to be off the wall questions, but I want to see what your answers are and just have some fun with it. So here we go. So question number 1, would you rather have a third eye or a third arm?
A third eye.
Okay, a third eye. So why would you want a third eye?
I think there's some real spiritual significance to that. As a person that meditates every day, I don't know, I get a lot of pleasure out of my visual sense. So that's why.
Yeah, and I would have a third eye too, but I wear glasses, so if you can imagine where that eye would be, probably in the middle of your forehead. Glasses, it would be really weird unless they invent that down the road, but they may, who knows. Okay, second question. Do you watch Seinfeld? Or have you watched Seinfeld in the past?
Yes.
Perfect. What is your favorite Seinfeld episode of all time?
Okay, I don't know what it's called, but it's the one where George, I got to explain this. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, so please explain away. I love Seinfeld. This
is really cool because it relates to like sort of a surrender and kind of a relaxing principle that I talk about sometime in my coaching. So okay. George comes into the coffee shop. Jerry's sitting there. I don't know if Elaine's there or not, but George sits down with Jerry and he's like, my whole life has been a complete disaster. My whole life, everything I've done has been wrong. I've done everything wrong in my life. Something like that. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Jerry says, well, why don't you try doing the opposite of what you've always done? And George goes like, oh, that's interesting. And he goes over to a lady that's sitting at the bar in the coffee shop. And he's like, hi, I'm George. I'm fat, I'm bald, and I live with my parents. And she goes, hello.
Hi.
He stops showing up to work. And they give him a promotion. He just completely gives up on life and like relaxes. And all these great things start to happen. I think it ends up like snowballing and it gets really bad by the end of the thing. But it makes you realize like how much we grip onto life sometimes. And it's like when I relax and sit back a little bit, sometimes really great things happen. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. Slow down to speed up. Okay, so here's a three-part question. If you were a pro wrestler, what would your stage name be? What would be your entrance music? And what would be your signature move?
I got to make up a name. Okay, Livin' La Vida Loca. I'd be a luchador. I'm thinking that Livin' La Vida Loca. What was the second part of that?
What would your intro music be for your wrestler? What would your intro music? What music gets you pumped up, ready to rock and roll?
I would say Chalk Dust Torture by Fish.
I've never heard of Chalk Dust Torture, but I'm going to Google it by Fish. And now, what is Russell Beebe's signature move?
I don't know why, but I'm picturing myself, and I know that I could not even ever do this, but I'm picturing a backflip off a ladder mid-ring.
Okay.
Onto somebody, body slam.
So the BB Crush, huh?
There you go.
Yeah, buddy. Okay, so thank you for your answers. Now, how can people get a hold of you? We talked about the free giveaway on winwithfred.com/podcast. Your group. Go into some depth with that, how they can get a hold of you. Because I really want people to take advantage of your services and honestly get to know you because you're an excellent person, awesome individual.
Yeah, so I have a Facebook group called Wellness Seekers Community.
Okay.
The problem with that is the name might change. I've got a trademark issue going on with that. So I would say the best way to get in touch with me, you can look me up on Facebook. Send me a friend request, send me a message. Wellness Seekers Community,
okay.
Facebook group. Or just go Russell at thewellnessseekers.com.
Very cool.
Totally fine. But you can find me on Facebook, send me a message, let me know what's going on, and I'm happy to help.
Well, Russell, thank you so much. Truly appreciate you stopping by the Freddy O Show today. It's been a lot of fun. You are a great individual, and I really implore, if you're listening to this right now, first of all, go to winwithfred.com/podcast so you can go ahead and get everything that he's offering. Join his Facebook group, his free giveaway, and also, honestly, look into his coaching. And plus, I'll put in the show notes ways you can get a hold of him on Facebook, his profile. He is authentic. He is a great individual, and he is here to help if you do need it. And honestly, he'd be a great mentor with somebody that is struggling with purpose, with their health, with their no matter what. You could be the best in the world, or you can be starting from scratch. Everyone needs something like this to help them get to that next level. So definitely, you want to hit Russell up. Russell, I truly appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to having you on again on the Freddy O Show. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, anytime.
Great show today, fam. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Also, thank you to Russell for bringing the gravy today. I hope you soaked it up and will take action with what you learned. And yes, I'm going to get back to taking those cold showers. No! Yes, I am. Also, make sure that you take a quick look at the show notes for today's podcast and join Russell's Facebook group. Plus, all his contact info will be there as well, and that is on winwithfred.com. Last but not least, visit winwithfred.com/FMA. I'm talking too fast. I say visit winwithfred.com/FMA to become a member of the new Facebook group I have, the Funnel Mastery Alliance. Until next time, my friends, stay hungry.